you so very much for joining us here today at Church on the Rock. We're so excited to have you, and we pray that God has a very specific word for you today. If you haven't checked out our website, let me urge you to go to jesusistherock.org. There you can find all of our latest news, blog posts, and messages. Also, while you're there, you can very easily give to our ministries financially by clicking on the giving button at the very top right-hand corner of the screen of any web page. Thank you again for joining us today, and let us prepare ourselves to hear from God.
This is one of those sermons that for some of you is not going to be easy. And the longer you've been in church, the harder it's going to be. The more religious you are, the more rub that it has. It's one of them that I have no doubt I'm expecting to get emails and texts and tweets and be criticized and ostracized and everything else. But I think it has to be addressed. In Matthew's Gospel, chapter 7, verse 21, Jesus makes a statement. He says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father, which is in heaven." Now you think about those words. Not everyone that calls me Lord is going to heaven, but he who does the will of my Father, which is in heaven. Would you say it's pretty important that we learn, know, and understand what the will of his Father is? If that's my ticket to heaven, really? I mean, if that's what being a believer is all about, if that's what this whole thing is about, from creation to revelation, is about knowing what the Father's will is and doing his will, I would say it's pretty important. I don't really care what the pastor's will is, or the priest's will is, or the Pope's will is, or my neighbor's will is, or what your will is, or what my will is. I want to know what his will is if that's the test. If that's the ticket, if that's the key, then I want to know what it is. There was a fella driving through town one time, and he worked in the circus, and the circus had already got to town and was setting up. He was running a little late, and so he kind of heavy-footed. He was running through this little town. The sheriff pulled him over. He says, "What's your hurry?" He said, "Well, I work in the circus." And he said, "Oh, everybody's already there, and I'm trying to catch them, and I got to get up there." And the sheriff said, "Man, I love circus. I've loved circus all my life." He said, "What do you do in the circus?" He said, "I'm a juggler." He said, "Wow, that's my favorite thing in the whole circus." He said, "I tell you what, I know you're in a hurry, but if you'll just get out and just do a little bit of juggling for me, I'll let you go. I loved you." And the guy said, "And I would love to, but I sent all of my stuff ahead. I don't have anything to juggle." The sheriff said, "Hang on, wait a minute." And he went back and he popped his trunk and he got out 5 flares. And he walked up, he said, "Will these work?" And the guy looked and said, "Yeah, I guess." And so he popped them off and lit them. And so they got on 5 flares. Well, the guy sits here, man, he starts going up and just juggling these things in the air. And the sheriff is just amazed. And a few minutes, a car comes kind of wobbling down the road and pulls over to the side. And there's an old guy sitting in there watching this. And he's seeing this thing. And in a few minutes, he gets out and he sort of stumbles across the street. He opens the back door of the sheriff's department car, gets in, and closes the door. And the sheriff walks over and says, "Sir, what are you doing?" He said, "Sheriff, I'm just going to tell you, if that's the test you're fixing to give me, I've already failed." Sometimes when I look at the rules to getting into heaven, when I look at the religious side, what does religion say I have to do? What is the key to getting there? What is the key to being a Christian? I think, God, if that's it, I'm doomed already. I can't juggle this stuff. I can't do this. I can't perform that well. And if that's what my Father's will is, to keep these rules, then I am in trouble already. I'm in a mess. To give a really oversimplistic timeline, I want to give you just some real quick, from the beginning of time up until later time, really modern time, I want to give you a really simplistic look at something because I want to find out from creation, from the beginning, what is my Father's will? Why is all this? Why did he even bother to create heaven and earth and mans and animals and plants and all? What was the purpose? What's the point? What is my Father's will? What is his wish? What is his want? What is this all about? If that's my ticket into heaven, I want to know what he wants. So in the beginning, God created heaven and earth, and he created man and woman and animals and all of this. And he told the man and the woman, he says, I want to have fellowship with you. The Bible talks about how they used to walk together in the cool of the evening in the garden. He said, I just want kids. I just want love. I just want family. I just want to love you and you to love me. He said, what I really want is I want you to trust me. I am your Father. I've created you out of the dust of the earth, and then I took the rib from the man and I created a helpmate. I want you to trust me that if I created you, I can provide for you anything and everything you need. But there's a problem. Because he's created us as humans, and one of the things he gave us was a free will, a choice. And God says, how do I know if they trust me? So he says, okay, I tell you what, here we go. I'm going to put one tree in the garden, and you can eat of every other tree of the garden. It's all yours. Just don't eat this one. Just this one, okay? That way I'll know that you trust me. I know it doesn't make sense because it looks just like every other tree. It's not rational. I don't understand it. It looks, but just trust me. I want to know if you trust me. And no, it didn't have to be a tree. He could have said, you can swim in any pond on the garden, just not this pond. You can cross any bridge, just not this bridge. It had to be something. But you understand if I told you that in order to have obedience, there at least has to be the possibility for disobedience. If you're going to have trust, there has to be at least the possibility for mistrust or no trust. So there has to be something that makes a choice. And so we know the story. It wasn't long before God found out, you really don't trust me. Because the serpent came and said, God doesn't love you. If he loved you, he would let you eat of all the trees. He's just trying to keep you down. He knows if you eat of this tree, you'll be like him. Maybe I can't trust him. And, they took the fruit and ate and gave this, all this, and God says, one tree, one thing. And then from there, it just rolled downhill until you get to a scripture that says, God looked at the world and God repented that he had even made man. What have I done? Nobody trusts me. None of these people, they're all running around. They're killing each other. They're stealing from each other. They're doing this. And God said, that's it. I'm going to wipe it out. And he wipes it out. I mean, he says, I'm fixing to start over. This is not what I created. This is not what I wanted. This is not my will. But there is this guy. There is this guy that I think trusts me. He's a good man. He's upright, and he's this. And he goes to Noah, and he says, hey, Noah, I want you to build a boat. Noah said, a what? A boat. Because it's going to rain for 40 days and 40 nights, and I'm going to flood this earth. And Noah says, what's rain? Because it never rained before. The plants, the grass, everything was watered out of water dew that come up out of the ground. It never came from the sky before. And he said, this time it's coming down and it's coming up because I'm going to break open the earth and all the water's coming forth and I'm going to flood this place and I'm going to wipe it clean. Now, build a boat. What you think? People are going to laugh at you. They're going to call you crazy. What you think? Noah said, you want a boat? You got a boat. I trust you. And he did. And he built the boat. And God told him, you put this kind of animal and this many of these and this many of these, and you put this, you and your family, you get on here. God put them on the ark. God flooded the earth. Noah and his family were saved. They came out. They offered sacrifices to God. Everything was fine for a little while. And then something happened. And Noah did some crazy junk. And some of his kids did some crazy junk. And pretty soon the world goes to hell in a handbasket again. And so God says, well, I already promised that I'm not going to flood the earth again. He said, everybody, they're running around, they're killing, they're stealing, they're worshiping other gods. So this is not what I wanted. This is not my will. But there is this guy. God always has a man. God always has a remnant. He has a remnant. There is this guy. And he goes to an old man named Abraham. He said, Abraham, you've found favor in my sight. You've always trusted me. You haven't done everything right, but I think you trust me. He said, I'm going to create out of you. You're going to have a kid. You're like 70, 80 years old. You're going to have a kid, you and Sarah. And out of that seed, out of that child, I'm going to create a nation. And it's a chosen generation. It's a holy people. It's the nation of Jews, and they're going to be my kids. And he said, they're going to be as many as the stars in the sky. He said, as the grains on the sand of every beach in the world, your kids, your people are going to outnumber that. I'm going to do that out of you if you'll trust me. And so story goes on, has a lot of stuff in it there, but he has Isaac eventually. The child grows up, becomes a teenager. God comes to Isaac. God says, I've got to know. Can I trust this guy? He says, hey, Abraham. Abraham said, yeah, I'm here, Lord. You were here Wednesday night. We talked about this. He said, I want you to take your kid up on the mountain, and I want you to offer him as a sacrifice to me. Besides, we talked about Wednesday night, the whole emotional side of that deal. Besides the fact, I'm glad God didn't ask me to do that, because me and God would have had big problems. I'm just being honest with you. Besides that, Abraham has to be thinking, but wait a minute, you said through this child that he would have children, and they would have children, and there was going to be this nation. But he may have thought it, but he didn't say it. God said, Abraham, he said, yes, Lord, I'm here. He said, I want you to take your child up and offer him a sacrifice. The Bible says he got up early the next morning, saddled his donkey, took Isaac. There they went, headed up to the mountain. Got up to the mountain, tied his son up, laid his son up on an altar, pulled out his knife, and raised his hand to come down through his son's heart. And as he raised his hand, it said, the angel of the Lord said, Abraham, twice, Abraham. Don't you touch a hair on his head. I just had to know. I just had to know. I just had to know. Do you trust me? Do you trust? The last verse in that chapter says, because you heard and obeyed my voice, then your seed, I'm going to have this family. God made a choice right then that I will have a people. A people. Now, after that, the story goes on. Pretty much people start getting disobedient again, start doing the same stuff again, and they end up in slavery in Egypt as slaves. And God says, oh my gosh, these people, but there are my kids. I made a promise. I swore they were going to be my chosen people. But there is a man. There's a guy named Moses. And he calls Moses out of this burning bush, and he says, Moses. And Moses says, yeah, and he says, I want you to go tell the Pharaoh to set my people. They're still my people. They're not acting like it. They're rebelling, but they're still my kids. And tell Pharaoh, let my people go. Moses, what? God, I can't even talk good. I stutter and stuff. And God said, you think, and it's so funny in the Bible, he says, who created you? And he said, well, you did. You think I know how you talk? Yeah. All right. Go tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And he did. He goes down and he tells Pharaoh, let my people go. God had to do a little convincing, had to do a few things, mess with them. So finally, Pharaoh says, you know what? Go. In the morning, just take your people and go. Take your stuff and go. And I tell you what, any of my stuff, take it. Just go. Just go. And it said they plundered Egypt. They took all their riches. They took everything. And the people, God's kids, God's generation left out. They just had this short trip to get to the promised land, the place that God had prepared for them. Should have been a few days' journey, but they got out there and they started being human again. And they started messing up and they started saying, well, I'm hungry. At least back in Egypt, we have food to eat. And you know what God said? God said, take another lap. Take another lap. God would provide food for them. They say, well, we're thirsty. We want this here. And God said, take another lap. You should have been there last Friday, but take another lap, you know. You're not. Well, we got this manna to eat, this stuff that God provides every day. Finally, they say, we're sick of this manna. God says, take another lap. But I'm going to give you meat. So he gives them meat and all this. But I mean, 40 years they walked around out here. 40 years that they walked in the wilderness trying to get to where that they were supposed to be. They were still the point in all of their rebellion. They were still God's people. They messed up over and over and over again, but they were still his kids. And it was then and only then that God said, you know what? This thing is not working. This is not my will. This is not my will. Every time I set you free, every time I bless you, I recreate you, I do this. He said, you guys need some guidelines. You really do. Because you don't know. So he sends Moses down with what has come to be known as the 10 Commandments. The 10 rules. And he says, I want you to understand, there's only one reason that I'm giving you this, because there's still only one thing I want from you. I want you to trust me. But you know what? Thou shalt not steal. You don't have to steal. You can trust me. Thou shalt not kill. You know why? You can trust me. I'll dole out judgment and punishment when it needs to be. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Why? Because I'll put you with the right person that you need. I want you to trust me. So now here's these guidelines. Here's these rules. Here's these things, and I want you to take them. I want you to learn these rules. And so maybe these rules will help you trust me. And it was maybe the best thing that ever happened to us, and maybe the worst. Because somewhere along the way, the church started worshiping the rules, and we forgot about the ruler. We started focusing on the thou shalt nots, and we forgot what the purpose was to trust him. So let's stop for just a minute, and let's talk about rules. What are the rules? And I hope I can say this right. There's two ways to receive rules. Either you choose the rules or the rules choose you. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. You can be born into a family, and because you're a part of that family, there are certain rules that apply. You didn't choose the rules. You didn't even choose the family. But the rules are there both to protect you and to bring harmony to the family. They're there. When you're 3 years old, the rule might be you play in the yard. Don't get in that street. Now, to a 3-year-old, we say, yeah, but the ball bounces better in the street. It won't bounce on the grass, right? But there's a rule, and the rule is there for you. If you get in the street, you're going to get killed. Well, we don't know what killed is at 3 years old. We don't know, but that's the rule. When you're 12, no, you can't take the car to a party tonight. Why? Because it's illegal. You can't have a driver's license. It's dangerous. You can't do that. It's a rule. You didn't ask for it. The rule was put on you. You didn't ask for a rule. You didn't ask. When you're 16, no, you can't go out on a school night to 2 a.m. Because it's not healthy for you. It's not, you know what I'm saying? You didn't ask for the rules, but because you were born into this family, the rules were thrust upon you. We didn't choose them. They chose us. We didn't ask to be born. We just, the rules sort of come with, with life. How many know life just has rules? We don't ask for them. Life comes with rules. All right, but there's a second kind of rules. There's another kind that doesn't choose us, but we choose them. We decide we want to join something, whether it's a church or a club or a fraternity or the Elks Lodge or Kiwanis or Rotary, or we want to join the PTA. What doesn't matter. We want to join us. And here's what we do. We decide we want to join this, and they tell us, if you want to join us, here are the rules. Here's the rules. Pay these dues. Attend at least 2 meetings a week. Be involved in at least 4 fundraisers a year. If you want to, whatever the case is, here's the rules. If you want to join, here's the rules. So that's the 2 types of rules, those that are put upon us and those that we look over and decide, okay, I can do that. And we sign on the dotted line. What does all that have to do with us? Okay, I've taken this long way around to get to tell you the difference in religion and relationship. That's what I want you to understand. Religion says, here we are. We are the church. Not just church, little c, church on the rock. We are the church, big C. We are the body of Christ. We are the believers. We are the redeemed. We are the Christians. We are the whatever that you want to call that. This is who we are. Those people out there, we call them the world. You have the church and you have the world. They're the lost. They're the unsaved, unconnected. That's who they are. And so what we say to them is, we say, if you would like to join us, here are the rules. You join the church, you pay your tithes, you participate in fundraisers, you bring stuff here. We got a few other, we got some things you can't do. If you're going to be here, you can't do this, and you can't go here, and you can't do this, and you know, you're smoking, you're drinking, you're running, you're doping, you got it. You know, these are the rules. This is the house. This is the deal. This is now sign on the dotted line, which usually means repeating some kind of prayer that we've sort of called the sinner's prayer, because it's for the sinners. And it says, you know, repeat after me. And it usually goes something like, Lord, I confess with my mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in my heart that God raised Jesus from the dead, and I will be saved. And we sign on the dotted line, and presto, we're in. We don't really know what we're in, but we're in. We're a member. On my way to heaven. I'm in. I've signed on the dotted line. What's strange is that sounds so close to really who we are and how we operate. We may not say it exactly like that, but that is pretty much modern day religion, right? That's how we do things. When somebody comes in, that's what we say. This is who we are, and if you want to join, here's what you do. The problem is that was never meant to be God's way. It was never God's plan. It was never God's will. God was like, how many remember Rodney King? Remember Rodney King from the LA riots way back? And Rodney King, he became famous for saying, why can't we all just get along? And that was kind of God's philosophy. All I want you to do is just trust me. That's all I've ever asked you to do, is just trust me. Trust. Why can't we all just get along? I just want a family. God's plan has always been and will always be to have a family. All I want from you is for you to trust me. So family isn't something you decide. Family, you don't look over the list of rules and decide whether or not you want to join. You're in. When you popped out of the womb, you were inducted. You didn't sign anything. You were in. But You were born into this thing. You were born, and you were born into the family of God. You were born a child of God. You were born a member of this family. You didn't have a choice in the matter. When Jesus died on the cross, we weren't born Jewish, but the Bible says that when Jesus died on the cross, we were grafted into. We became the seed of Abraham. That was part of the miracle, is we all Gentiles became the seed of Abraham. We were grafted in, and when we're born into this thing. I've got 2 girls. My girls did not have a choice to be my girls. They didn't have a choice. They didn't have a choice to have me as their father. They'd have probably chosen another one. They didn't get to look around and say, this guy, he got money, he'll buy me this and this, that. They didn't have that choice. And guess what? They never will. They never will. They never can. They may break all the rules. As 3-year-olds, they may run out into the street. They may get hit by a car. They may get killed. But if they do, when I bury them, I will bury my child. I don't care if they broke the rule or not. They're still my child. They may get 12 and sneak off in the car and go riding off to a party and come home, and they may get in all kind of trouble. But when they get in trouble, it's my girls that's in trouble. When they get 16 and they go out and they get, drunk driving, and they may make horrible mistakes. They may destroy their lives and the lives of others, but they will still be my child. And I will never stop wanting them to be my child. I'll never stop, because I will never allow them to stop being my child, even if I could, which I can't. I always laugh at people who say, "You do that, buddy, and I'm going to disown you." And I say, "No, you're not. Stupid. You can't disown your child. You may not talk to them. You may not see them. You can't disown them. You can't just cut you out of them. They are part of you. You can't disown anybody. Their choices, their sin may separate us. It may hurt our relationship, but they can never separate themselves from my blood. They're mine. They're mine. Now, therefore, and this is where I get out on thin ice. This is what's going to get me in trouble right here. That's where I live most of the time. Because of that, there really is no club to join.
Again, thank you so very much for joining us here today at Church on the Rock. I pray that our message has impacted you in a positive way. If you would like to share how our ministries are impacting you, you have a specific prayer request, or maybe you want more information about our church or how to get involved in our ministries, you can easily email us at pray@jesusistherock.org, or you can look us up on Facebook or Twitter at Church on the Rock, Pascagoula. Have a very blessed day.